Hello viewers, you're welcome to Economy Today on TVRC. I am your host for today. My name is Olaniun Kudus Oluwatobiloba, and with me here is Dr. Akintunde Somi Vincent. You're welcome today, sir.
Thank you.
It's really good to have you on set with us today.
Yeah, same here.
Alright, so we're going to be talking about a topic which I believe requires a whole lot of deliberation. Is the procurement of loans a viable strategy to improve economic stability here in Nigeria? And before we proceed, I would like us to be able to address some questions. I would like to ask, sir, do you think this step taken by the government will really improve economic stability and enhance sustainable development here in Nigeria in the long run?
Well, it's so nice to be here today. But before I dive into your question, it is imperative, very pertinent that I establish this fact that when people refuse to learn from history, they are doomed to repeat the same mistake. Borrowing from people who are well-to-do, meaningful countries, developed nations, borrowing from them is not actually bad in itself.
Okay.
But what you're borrowing for must be well spelled, must be meaningful,
Okay.
must be well spelled out, must be certain that this is why you are borrowing.
Okay.
For instance, borrowing for consumption is to what end? After heating the food, what are you going to get money to pay? Where are you going to get money to pay back? But when you borrow for production, then you are sure that whatever interest that will yield, then you have something to pay back.
Okay.
And borrowing for generation yet unborn is uncalled for. So, like I said, borrowing is not bad in itself, but what you're borrowing for must be meaningful. You must borrow for production. You must borrow to develop your own nation.
Okay.
Like we have the developed nation, we have the developing nations. And you agree with me that those who are really borrowing the money, they are the developing nations. So whatever you are borrowing, you must use it to transform your own country, to move your country from developing to developed. But if you are not doing that, then your lessons of borrowing is defeated.
Okay. Thank you very much, sir. So you really believe that we have to focus on production, at least for the purpose of borrowing. It has to be for
That's
for
the way out.
production.
Because when you look at most of the developed nation, like you've heard of the time, there's a man called Carnegie in the US.
Okay.
Carnegie, the Rockefellers, these are people who lead the industrial revolution in that part of the country. Look at the Lee Kuan Yew of Singapore. Look at some of the Asian tigers, Malaysia, Indonesia, Singapore. Look at China. Look at Russia. You will notice that they are able to maintain their space, their steels and composure on the basis of sporadic industrial revolution. So we cannot be left. We cannot allow ourselves to just put ourselves. We can't be left behind. We have to champion industrial. We have to think about industrialization in this part of the world, in the African states. If we can't just be, like I said, borrowing is not bad in itself. Or what we want to borrow for must be meaningful.
Okay.
Must be on the basis of, like you said, production. We must encourage production. Whatever we are borrowing, let's put it on production.
Okay.
So whatever interest we are getting on it, then we use it to do other things,
Okay.
like payment of salaries, like maybe not just servicing the debt, but paying back. So that we don't just mortgage our country.
Okay.
For those we are borrowing money from. For example, we have a country in Africa, I think, if not Zambia to be precise, Zambia to be precise, that the whole of whatsoever they borrowed for, despite borrowing a humongous amount of money, their memorandum of understanding, that allowed him expatriate. More or less like expatriate, they are the one running virtually everything in that country.
Okay.
So it's more or less like they mortgage that country for to the Chinese, which is very bad in itself.
Wow.
So we can allow ourselves to mortgage our country.
Wow.
So we have to be very conscious, be careful to whatever we want to borrow. Let's borrow within our means. And whatever we are going to borrow, it should not be on the basis of maybe consumption, on the basis of payment of salaries. We have to pump those money into production so we can develop our nation. So that we can also borrow others in a very short while, in a very short time to come.
Okay. Thank you very much, sir. Another thing is that yesterday, 26th of September, was supposed to be the approval date of this particular loan, about $1.7 billion. All right. However, I do not believe it has been approved yet. But if it is to be approved, It is said that statistics shows that this current administration would have already borrowed $3.95 billion just in this year alone, and a total cumulative of about $6.65 billion under President Bola Tinubu Ahmed's administration. So how do you think the government plans to pay back this loan and other outstanding loans back to the World Bank?
You see, when you see those who are the drivers of economy, they are thinkers, not just people who act on emotion and sentiments.
Okay.
Now, what I've seen so far that this administration is actually doing is I think what they are pumping money into, so far so good in my opinion, I think it's on infrastructure. Like if you travel to Abuja lately, you notice that things have really changed big time in that part of the country.
Okay.
Just that part of the country. Look at other sectors. Our health sector is still very much, like I said, was on this program, is still in a state of squalor, a state of comatose. Okay. When you look at other sectors, I don't want to bore you with what is actually happening in other sectors. So now borrowing money. What my question is, what are we borrowing money for? What are we borrowing money for? At whose detriment? Like I said, borrowing money is not bad, but borrowing money using it to fix road, does that mean we don't have bitumen again in this country to fix our roads? Is it that we don't have experts, we don't have people with intellectual capacities who can pilot that particular segment to make sure our roads are in good shape? Do we really need to borrow billions of dollars to fix our roads? Because I still don't know what we are borrowing for. Are we borrowing to pay teachers' salaries? Are we borrowing to buy ammunition to fight terrorism, to fight terrorists? So what are we borrowing for? Just imagine the amount of money you just mentioned. Very huge, humongous. How are we going to pay back? Even to harvest our commodities, to talk to our farmers to produce in their numbers in an exponential rate, we are still not doing that. So I still don't know how we're going to pay back that money. Like I said, African leaders, they behave the way they behave sometimes. It's just out of this world. Servicing debt, right from the very beginning of our democracy. So the point is, what are we borrowing for? This we must, you just ask how they are going to pay back. Well, maybe you know how they are going to pay back. So the point is, just on a lighter note. But for real, I don't know how this government, because now even if you are going to base on the kind of revenue generation, even if our revenue generation, can it take care of our immediate payment of salaries, not talk of servicing our debt. Some countries are not even talking about servicing debt. Must we be enticed to take all these loans? Why should we dive into it? What is wrong with we borrowing people? Can't we develop ourselves to start borrowing other? By the way, Nigeria is said to be the giant of Africa. Where's the giant in Nigeria? Where we keep borrowing a whole lot of money. You borrow money from, you are still owing United States of America. You are still owing China. You are still owing Japan. You are owing Indonesia. I mean, from what to whose detriment? And if you notice, sorry to say, most of all these politicians, why they are even borrowing this money most of them is for personal reasons. We've seen a vice president in this country who happens to after the end of his tenure, he's no longer living in Nigeria. He's not in I did not call him. He's not living in Dubai. That's where he's living permanently. We've had of a president in this country whose house was burnt, and he said on the nation that let me say that that the house of the king that got burnt, that it beautifies it the more. Then definitely, if he's going to pump money into it, it's going to come out the better.
Wow.
So when you look at the amount of money in the hands of these private individuals, you'll be so shocked that the money that you think they borrowed, they put it into their own personal accounts, offshore accounts. There are numerous accounts in this country. I mean, buy properties that generation yet unborn cannot even, that they may be of no use to. buying all manner of buying private jets. What are we going to do? I mean, it's very worrisome. It's highly devastating. It's painful when you think like this sometimes. The way African leaders behave, they behave like and this what makes it different. This what makes it different to the likes of Lee Kuan Yew. We're still talking about Mahatma Gandhi of India. We're still talking about Uhuru Kenyatta in Kenya. These are the 40. I don't know what we'll be thinking in their where they may be, wherever they may be now. Kwame Nkrumah in Ghana, the likes of Obafemi Awolowo, the likes of Nnamdi Azikiwe. I don't know what they will be thinking now, wherever they. I don't know. I just say it's so painful.
It is. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for that contribution. I also like to ask, what are the chances that future generations and future government regimes as well will be burdened with offsetting this particular loan?
Yeah, it has become annual festival. I mean, a kind of administrative occurrence. Like when you look at from one president to the other, you can always accrue a particular amount of debt to them. Jonathan borrowed his own out of office. Buhari took over his own too. He's still very much there. They are still talking about his debt. Now Tinubu is still also borrowed. Exactly. So definitely the one coming behind will also be thinking most of this. So who will eventually pay this thing? We not turn ourselves into stooges in the hands of IMF, in the hands of World Bank. We are not stooges. We have become a kind of instrument for them to tussle here and there. I mean, it's actually uncalled for. It's uncalled for.
Thank you so much, sir. I really appreciate that. I also like to finally ask regarding the documents that is to be approved for the particular loan in which we're talking about. It is said that most of the funds is to go into primary health care, human capital, as well as sustainable development and irrigation. So I would like to ask finally that what do you think is the way forward regarding this, and what are the measures that can be put in place to ensure that these funds are actually appropriated for their intended use, so that they are not, like you said, they are not embezzled by these people in power. Okay, so what measures do you think that can be put in place to ensure that these funds are really used for what they are supposed to be used for?
Sorry, permit me to take a few of your time.
Okay.
Because all these politicians, they think they are talking to idiots. They want to bamboozle us with things that are. Now you want to spend money into primary health care. Now check your local government, check your area. How many number of primary health cares that they have there? And when you look at it, most of the time when our primary health care practitioners, when they move here and there, did they carry, what is it that they carry that is so that is so unique? They move around with coolers to stop vaccines. Those vaccines, where are we getting it from most of the time? Most of the time they are being given to us. For example, eradicate polio. Yeah. Eradicate what's it called? All manner of diseases that we want. We have people that are financing that vaccines from the Western world. We have Bill Gates Foundation. We have all manner of foundation. In Senegal, we have this Econ Foundation. All manner of foundation. So what are you building? Primary health care. Do you want to build another? Check their buildings. Do you see any kind of magnanimous building? How many blocks of rooms? When you talk about sustainable development, what's sustainable development, for crying out loud? What happened recently, the Maiduguri flood, the flooding in that particular region? Do you know how many individuals that pump money into that particular flooding, and then you still want to collect money because of we want to get relief aid from the Western world? And in the long run, the money will be diverted into private accounts. Look at the number Dangote, all the business owners in this country that put money into that flooding saga. Yet you still want to. You are talking about sustainable development. You are talking about irrigation. What does it take to irrigate? Irrigation is talking about watering farms. With intellectuals that we have in this country, are looking people they've been able to devise means to irrigate their farms. They can link up. They can trace ocean, rivers. They can trace that. They can have it. They can have a kind of a
Like
passage, a channel
yeah.
to their farms. That is irrigation. So where they are pumping the money to, most of the time, it ends up in private hands.
Quite unfortunate.
So the point is, we need to think outside the box. We need it, like I said, when the purpose of governance is not known, this is what you say. This is what you say. Like I said, the purpose of governance, the purpose of being in government is to serve. The moment you say it as a kind of avenue to you to siphon money, they will know you will not do anything. The leader will not do anything. If he's just there thinking about how he can gather money, and we know these games, they are not new to us. Why we keep falling victim is what is really giving me concern. We are not Nigerians. Average Nigerians knows those who has the capability to rule them, to govern them. But why are we still falling victims? We are still very much in the hands of dictators, in the hands of thieves, in the hands of those who are not ready to do anything for this country. They are just there for their personal interest, mortgaging the country, collecting loan, borrowing loan, ditching out policies that are very much not necessary, collecting money from the citizens to finance few individuals. Because I still can explain it. How you are going to collect? How you refuse to pour money into petroleum sector because you think you don't want to pay subsidy, and the money that should be pumped into that sector, you not put it together. You are not giving it to the governors that cannot even account for those money. How do you explain that? So, when the purpose of a thing is not known, abuse is inevitable.
So, what do you think? What do you think are some little measures that we can put in place to ensure that at least we curb all of these things that you just said?
Production.
Okay.
We have to encourage production, and we have to also talk about accountability. We have to, our leaders must be accountable.
Okay.
When all these people, when they keep, and you can see with your own eyes that they are doing the wrong thing.
Okay.
But because of, I don't know, maybe fear of the unknown, all these people, they go away with. They cut away the resources, and nobody is holding them accountable for anything. So accountability, is very easy. So it's of essence. It's very essential.
Okay.
Production, in short, we have to take it more serious. More serious. All sectors. And again, it's diversification.
Okay.
We have been talking about this for quite a while now. You cannot put your egg in one basket. As you're talking about petroleum sector, you are looking at the petroleum sector. Look at the agricultural sector. Look at how you can make do with your sports.
Okay.
Look at the number of gold. The last Olympic by the likes of China, Chinese, America. Your and again, opening your country up for investment. That's why you have to make sure you take care of the insecurity that is ravaging the land.
Okay.
So it's a whole lot of, if you're able to put all these few points together, we're able to set them into action.
Okay.
Because it's not enough to soup up theories.
Okay.
You have to set it into motion, and this is where the action comes in. If the country is serious, and we are able to set it into motion, I tell you most solemnly, we definitely chat back to life, and we become. We definitely take back our position of being a giant of Africa, because recently we heard about the likes of South Africa saying, "What is so giant in Africa? What is so giant about Nigeria? Well, you call Nigeria giant of Africa. So what is there to be called when you are still? Some country call us Generator Republic. There they cannot even where we cannot even service our we cannot even with no viable electricity supply. So if we're able to put all those points together, we're able to set them in action, not just theory, not just policies and theories.
Okay.
I tell you most solemnly, the country will be remembered for good.
Thank you so very much, sir. I really appreciate that. I particularly like your contribution regarding the idea of accountability, regarding our government as well as our leaders out there. Okay, because there's really need for accountability, like you said. We really need some measures to be put in place, especially for some certain agencies that can really put checks on what exactly some of these funds are being appropriated for, and to ensure that they are really used for what they are intended for. Okay, so I really appreciate you, sir. Thank you very much for coming here. There you have it, viewers. That is it for today on Economic Today on TVRC. We really appreciate you for honoring our invitation here today. We really hope to see more of you again. And I remain your humble host, Olaniun Kudusoluwatobilova. Thank you so much for tuning in. Till next time. Bye for now.